When an unusual story with an original plot gets to a brilliant director, it turns out to be a mega super duper movie for all times. That's what happened with the 1991 French comedy, Total Surveillance.
He read the script, called me up and said, "You son of a bitch. You knew I'd agree to do this movie."
I've wanted to play a special agent in some cool spy action movie my whole life.
We worked 9 hours a day, up to our necks in water, at about this depth.
If something interferes with the frame, it can be removed later. You can remove the cable, the posts.
It's all written down. Send this to your mom as proof. Let her see her son having fun in Hollywood.
Right now, we're finding out what True Lies is hiding, how the Florida Keys Bridge got blown up, what Schwarzenegger flew, where they put the Harrier, why Cameron needs a wagon wheel, and who the old guy on the toilet is. Claude Ziti's spy comedy action movie Total Recall, in the hands of James Cameron, turned into True Lies, a thrilling action movie that is even more comedic and even more action-packed. Cameron filled the story with bright colors in his inimitable directorial style. True Lies is a tango. 140 minutes of passionate, daring, searing and explosive dance with the audience, embodied in artistic, script and camera work techniques. This is Cameron's zest. It is not without reason that everything begins and ends with the tango. For the great and powerful Arnold Schwarzenegger, this Argentine dance was a real challenge.
I learned to dance tango for hours, days and weeks. I took dance lessons because I saw Al Pacino dancing tango. And then I said to myself, if I'm not as good as him, then what the hell am I doing in this movie? And it was all very recently, not in the 40s or 50s. The movie came out just a year ago. If I'm not mistaken, it's Scent of a Woman. I think it's called that, and he was in it. He was so good. He danced so amazingly, and I thought, what's my problem? I can do that. So I learned it.
Indeed, Schwarzenegger spent 6 months learning to dance the tango. As you can see, Arnold is a good dancer. He is nothing in the way, and everything was not so scary. What was scary was being in the poor old man's shoes in the latrine. This is Paul Barcelou, the star of American television series of the second half of the 20th century. In the big movie Paul almost did not star, can hardly count a dozen films. One of these, Inner Space, Look at Leisure, Fun Kinzo, True Lies, is Paul Barcelou's last appearance on the big screen. They trashed the toilet, made a lot of bloopers. We'll tell you about them at the end of this video. And Grandpa is just fine. The old man is unharmed, lucky guy. And that's not the worst part. The worst part was the horse that almost killed Schwarzenegger. Arnie got off with a minor scare and the horse wasn't hurt. It was all thanks to the stuntmen, these brave guys, Peter Kent, Joel Kramer and 68 other stuntmen, are real masters of their craft. But none of them would risk repeating what the special effects specialists do. This is not a hoo-ha. 8 studios worked on visual and practical effects. But only 3 companies got all the most delicious things. Complex graphics and compositing was done by Digital Domain, digital processing was done by Boss Film Studios, and miniatures and layouts were designed and created by Stetson Visual Services, the guys from Mark Stetson's studio, together with specialists from Digital Domain, built a 20-meter bridge from gypsum panels and foam. The base for the bridge were posts fixed underwater into the coral bottom. Explosives and detonators were laid inside in a special way, because the model after the explosion should explode into debris exactly as the real bridge would have exploded. The result was a very complex engineering design.
We worked 9 hours a day, up to our necks in water, at about this depth. It took a long time to get the whole thing built, but it was very well done. We shot a couple takes and it was perfect, or almost perfect. You saw it yourself, all those explosions, one after another. But that's just the bridge. The truck was much more complicated. It gradually accelerates, picks up speed, and when it crosses a set point, it triggers the detonation, because when the pyrotechnics go off, the truck has to be in a specific place, and no other. In the movie, it looks exactly the way I planned it. The bridge explodes, the shockwave throws the truck up, it flies off, flips over and falls sideways. When we got back to LA and showed it to Jim, he loved it and wanted to shoot a little more to finish the scene. That moment when the van emerges from the dust cloud, stops at the very edge of the bridge and balances there like a skateboard, and then it falls down and explodes. I don't know why it explodes, because it's water. But that's what Cameron wanted. After more than 3 weeks, we finally succeeded and it worked properly. But there was a problem when the van hit the bridge, it rolled over instead of going down. We couldn't figure out why that was happening until I studied the video frame by frame, and I noticed it was the van's front tire. It was rubber, the wheel would hit the bridge, spring back, the van would lose its balance and flip over and go down fast. Well, it didn't work. Then I simply cut a wheel of exactly the same diameter and thickness out of plywood, painted it black, and painted a wheel disc with silver paint, screwed a self-tapping screw into it and mounted it on the van. It was perfect. On the bridge we scattered small shot and all sorts of debris, made rebar and chunks of concrete sticking out everywhere. We ended up with some excellent footage. There's a pile of dust in the air, the van falls over, debris flies around and everything explodes right in front of the camera. Boom! That's awesome. We brought that footage to Jim and he put it in the movie right away. And then he cut it out.
We wrote to Leslie Ecker and asked him, what was that scene and why did Cameron cut it out? To which Leslie said, Jim always shoots a lot of stuff and then takes it and ruthlessly cuts it, and went into detail about what it was. Ecker gave Cameron the idea of a truck swinging and falling off a bridge, and while James was shooting the scene with a gray Chevy van on the edge of the bridge, Leslie was doing his own production, but with a falling Ford. In the editing, Cameron felt that too. Trucks falling off the bridge in a row was overkill and left only one scene, with the Pirate Bay van. Leslie also told about the annoying hungry pelicans in the Florida Keys, and how he and James Cameron's brother Mike Cameron tracked down American manatees before blowing up the bridge, and he also recalled Mike designing a protective cover for the camera for James Cameron's filming of the remains of the Titanic, and he added, "How clever they are, those Cameron brothers." Naval Squadron Bulldogs provided Cameron with 3 Harriers for only $100,000 for a whole 40 hours, and in Digital Domain drew combat missiles and condensation trace. It turned out beautiful shots. To shoot the landing and takeoff of Harriers, several times blocked automobile traffic on the bridge of the Florida Keys. Specially trained girls treated drivers to Pepsi and gave them branded bumper stickers that read, "I was stopped by Sector Omega on the 7-mile bridge." On the back of the sticker, the crew apologizes for the inconvenience and explains that here is James Cameron himself, the director of Terminator 2, The Abyss, and Aliens, is filming a new blockbuster with Schwarzenegger. Thanks for understanding, and invites to the premiere in the summer of '94. Such a super polite, a small thing, but nice. And this sticker is an expensive trophy for fans.
Hey, Harry, do you realize that it has in fact been 10 years since you've been behind the wheel of one of these things?
If I break it, they can take it out of my pay.
Harry, listen, don't worry about it. We got a guy on the inside, Harry. Whoa! Gotta move back, everybody. Come on, let's go!
Harry Tasker escapes from the vicious Dobermans. A sleight of hand, and in an instant the dogs are neutralized, but the dogs weren't hurt, simply because they were rubber. One of them even lost an eye from the impact. You can't do that with live Dobermans. The magic of editing. And we're in the Westin Bonaventure Hotel in Los Angeles, going up to the 35th floor in the very elevator where Harry Tasker rode in on horseback. Whoa. What horse? There was no horse in the elevator. Well, the horse got into the elevator, but the elevator didn't go anywhere. The middle plan was filmed with a mechanical horse, and for close-ups they collected a model of a glass elevator cabin, accommodating a horse with a rider and 2 actors. Behind the mock-up they installed a screen with a rear projection of the hotel, creating the illusion of movement. While the camera was being set up, someone accidentally dropped an iron rack right on the horse's head. The stallion freaked out, stood on its haunches and almost fell with Arnold from a height of 30 meters. Schwarzenegger managed to quickly jump off the horse. He was picked up by stuntman Billy Lucas. By the way, It's not the roof of the Bonaventure, no one filmed at 100-meter height, a bit of chroma key, plus rear projection, and the bike flies off the Marriott Hotel into the pool on the roof of the penthouse. Boss Film did a good job. Wet landing, lucky you, not like the guys in the Pirate Bay van. They've been visited by a real pelican, the cunning bird is commanded by a trainer behind the scenes, and the van is rocked on a platform 3.5 meters high in front of a screen with a rear projection of the ocean and what's left of the bridge. James Cameron often used rear projection where it was extremely dangerous or simply impossible to shoot live.
In the last year and a half, we have learned to do things we never thought we could do before. We've developed the ability to digital image processing. For example, you can add a jet to an airplane or paper flying around. I mean, just cut or paste something into the frame. We couldn't afford that before, now it's different. You're no longer shooting a bunch of all these fake mock-ups, you're working with real objects, putting together the whole scene from different shots, and it changes the way you approach the filming process. Yes, it's probably more work, but I think it becomes easier and more creative, because you can make any changes to the footage you've already shot. If something gets in the way of the shot, you can remove it later. You can remove the cable, you can remove the cable, you can remove the stands. You know what I mean, you put a truck here, people there. If you don't like it, you do the opposite, if you don't like it again, you throw it away.
The final scene with the fighter plane was filmed in the center of Miami, on the roof of a 20-story building, where a large hydraulic gimbal, a platform with a 14-meter-long model of the Harrier AV-8B made of fiberglass, weighing more than 3 tons, was installed. From this point it is possible to film the airplane with the actors in close-up right in the background of urban development. In the computerized module of hydraulic control, gimbal recorded all the movements and tilts of the aircraft, and then the system itself repeated them in the exact sequence according to the preset program. Actors played take after take, and Cameron changed the location of the camera, shooting the scene from different angles. A few plans still had to finish shooting in Los Angeles on chroma key. In the green hangar, brought the same hydraulic platform and scrolled the plane on the recorded program. The computer added the refraction effect, the so-called air shake, from the hot jet under the turbines of the Harrier, and Schwarzenegger flew. The fighter jet with Schwarzenegger and Eliza Dushku landed in front of the same Miami high-rise on Brickell Avenue. The street has changed slightly since then, but the footage of the Harrier still looks very convincing. The model of the attack aircraft was hooked by a steel cable to a large tower crane, lifted 15 meters with the actors, and carefully lowered to the ground, while fans from behind the bushes scattered paper. To enhance the effect, they additionally filmed some more flying garbage on a black background. In digital domain, they put the whole scene together. They removed the cable, added shots with leaves and paper, and the refraction effect from the warm air stream. Everything seems to be perfect. The papers fly away, the plane lands, everyone is happy and satisfied, but Cameron wanted to see how to stop the blades in the turbines, and even with the effect of wagon wheel, this is when at a certain speed creates the illusion of rotation in the other direction. The director's wish is the law. And the guys thought about creating an animated 3D model of the blades, but then, suddenly, they remembered that they have a lot of footages with a real stormtrooper. In the end, they just took the turbines from a real Harrier and attached them to the airplane. The whirlwind with a fighter jet got on the nerves of artists and specialists in special effects, because James Cameron tried to achieve from them, sometimes simply impossible. Those of the guys who worked with Cameron again in 1996 on the short film Terminator 2 3D, Battle Through Time wore strange badges, hinting that they no longer needed such hemorrhoids as in the 29th scene with the Harrier in Miami. James Cameron is not looking for easy ways and says that there is not a single simple scene in this movie, and if there was one, he would definitely think of ways to complicate it. And here's the actual latrine. Note the cool staging, abandon dynamics, and lighting. The bullet holes are duct-taped and the urinal is made of latex. Oscar to Cameron for Best Latrine Scene.
King of the world!
The American, True Lies, left no chance to the French, Total Surveillance. The remake surpassed the original in everything. The movie was shot literally for 6 months and in July 1994 in California held a grand premiere. When the fees blockbuster exceeded $375 million, Claude Zidi could not resist and sued Cameron $15 million as a payoff for the rights to the script. The game developer also hustled. Right after the premiere, Acclaim released a video game for the Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. In honor of the 25th anniversary of the legendary action movie, I unwrapped my Sega Mega Drive to play this wonderful st-lock kill Vilka once again. As they say, feel like Schwarzenegger, play True Lies. And it is even better to watch the movie for the 135th time, because such a movie can be rewatched endlessly.
This movie was made for me. I've always wanted to play a special agent in some cool spy movie, like those old James Bond movies. And you know what? I got this opportunity. It was very easy for me. I put all my talent into it. Especially when you work with a director like James Cameron. He's the coolest director in the world. And no one makes movies like this better than him. James is a good friend of mine and I have a lot of respect for him as a director. He allows me to bring out all my acting skills.
The computer graphics of 30 years ago look surprisingly good and realistic, much better than many modern examples. In short, we can admit that The Lie has stood the test of truth, and one of Cameron's best pictures has stood the test of time. The skill of the special effects artists is fantastic. The work of the screenwriter is beyond praise. The movie is so well put together, there is not a single drawn-out scene, not a single logical lapse, seeing which, you think about the sanity of the creators. The humor in the picture is as peerless as everything else. The unprecedented comedy action movie is James Cameron's third collaboration with Arnold Schwarzenegger.